everyone, and welcome back to the Adult Climate Academy. And today I'm super happy to be joined by a free skier that he lives in northern Norway. We are talking about Nikolai Schirmer. He's been doing a lot of crazy stuff all around, especially in his home mountains in Lingen and Tromsø. But we are not here to talk mostly about his free skier career, but to talk about his role as an advocate for climate change, for the environmental issues, because he's one of the most talented free skiers. He's also a ridiculously good filmmaker. Go and watch his movies. It's some of the most beautiful free ski films you can see out there. But also he's combining all these and all his platforms, all his social media, with a very accurate and very easy to take climate advice. So first of all, Nikolai, thanks for being here with us. And can you present yourself a bit for the guys that might not know you? And yeah, what are you doing with your life? What's your main profession, and how did you end it on skiing?
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be here, Ben. And especially when you said the things I do are crazy, and I'm like, wow, but you do the real crazy stuff. So that's fun. But I'm a skier and I'm a filmmaker, and I combine the two. So I go skiing, I go have experiences in the mountain basically, and then I make a job out of this by conveying this experience to other people through the films that I make with my crew and the people I've been working with for many years, like Jonas Mattila and different people. And so, I mean, there's obviously a performance aspect in this as an athlete. You have to ski at a certain level for it to be interesting for an audience to watch. But there's definitely also a huge part of it is just having the ability as a director and a filmmaker to actually bring people out there into the mountains and to experience what me and my friends experienced out there, and to feel what we're feeling, and take part in what happens. So that's sort of the job side of it. And then the past 4 or 5 years, I think, I've also been trying to kind of run this experiment to see whether it's possible to do this job, but also try to have an environmental focus. Because, as we all know this year with what's going on in the Alps and in all of Europe at least, I think the US is having a better season, but it's just, you really feel the climate crisis on your body as a skier. We're dependent on the snow, and I felt really dumb, at least the first few years of my career, kind of running a traditional ski movie production with, flying all over the world and helicopters and snowmobiles and blah, blah, blah. So I wanted to just run an experiment and see if it's possible to do it in a way where it's less carbon intensive. And then I've been doing that for many years now, and it seems like I'm skiing more than ever and having amazing experiences, and the films aren't getting worse, I hope. So it's actually been a pretty fun combination, and it's also injecting some purpose and some, I don't know, even some hope maybe in this situation, because as a skier we are kind of the polar bears on that ice flake that is melting. The one thing we depend on to survive, it is disappearing in front of our eyes, and to be able to ski in a way where maybe, hopefully I'm contributing to that ice flake not melting as fast, and hopefully one day not melting at all. That feels good, and that's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you mentioned that the filming ski industry, it has a big carbon footprint, because often it's traveling to these really remote locations. It often involves the use of helicopters to either carry the skiers up or to film. It involves often barbecue crews of people. And it's been a model that it's been working for many years and still working. I think people now is taking more care, using more drones and using maybe more local adventures. But you started that a few years ago, as you mentioned, when it was not common at all. And what was the thing that it triggered you to say, I need to change my activity, the ski, how I'm doing today? What it was something that it was triggering, or it was like a natural progression to what you were seeing, or like something that you read, or what was this thing that made you change?
Well, yeah, I guess there were like a few factors. I don't know how it has been for you with your advocacy and how you've been becoming more involved with it. But for me, it's like, I think everyone is aware of the climate crisis. Even the athletes who do fly over the world and just like fired up that heli at any point. I think we all know, right? And I was in that boat, but then it's very easy to feel powerless and to not like be able to do something about it, and to feel like this is beyond bigger than you. And for me, there was a few things. One of the things was just kind of seeing the changes. I don't. You spent some time in Chamonix, right?
Yeah, I've been living like 10 years in Chamonix, so yeah, it's pretty huge, the changes there in like year after year, yeah.
It's insane, yeah. Just like, because I came here my first year in 2012 or 13, I think, and now it's like 2022, so 10 years. And yeah, just like seeing the glacier just disappearing in front of your eyes, and they put up these little plaques on the rock where it used to be, like on Mer de Glace. And now they built the Mer de Glace train, which means the Sea of Ice. And so tourists would take this train up to watch the Sea of Ice, and when they built the platform, it was on the Sea of Ice. And then when I arrived, 100 years later, that platform is like way up there. And you have to take the stairs to get up to the lift they built to reach the platform. Because they built the lift when the ice was at the lift, and then they built the stairs to reach the lift. And now they're building another lift to reach the lift it's just insane. So, and then it's like actual ski runs that you couldn't reach. Like you could just ski onto the Glacier Ronde ski run, for example, no problem, because it was all covered in ice when I came here. And only a few years later, like in my time here, it disappeared. So that was like one thing, just seeing the changes in the mountain. And then another thing was like I was touring with all the ski films I was making. And I would have kids come up to me and be like, I want to do this. Like, I want to go to Canada and ride snowmobiles. And I'd be like, no, don't do it. This is bad. So I was like really feeling like this inner, like I was not doing something good. And like it really felt bad. And also I feel like the only reason to ski is because it's fun, right? It's a great joy and a great pleasure. But you're not saving any lives. You're not contributing greatly to society. And I felt like, I don't know if it's a good reason to have crazy emissions to make a ski film, because it's just for fun anyways. And like, I think in my other areas of life, for my family or back when I had a girlfriend or whatever, I find it way easier to justify traveling a long distance and having emissions for them, because that's the most central thing in my life. And of course I would put them ahead of, some ideological thing like the climate crisis. But then for skiing, I found that way harder to justify. Why should I fly all over the world and have my carbon footprint was like 42 tons a year or something, which is 4 times higher than the average Norwegian, which is again 3 times higher than the average world citizen, which again is 3 tons higher than where it needs to be at zero. So, I was like at the very peak, and I found that really, really hard to justify, and just for me to have fun and make some money. So I was like, okay, I need to try. I need to just jump into it and see what happens. And then, as you go on these crazy mountain adventures, there's always that fun of the unknown, of going into something where you don't know what the outcome is going to be, but just applying your full effort and your full everything you have to that and see what happens. And to me, this was something like that. Okay, what does happen if I jump onto this climate crisis as a skier and see how it affects the way I approach the mountains? It's one thing, but also how I approach my career and my filmmaking and everything. And it's been actually a really, really fun journey. And it's been super rewarding to have this extra layer of purpose and meaning added onto a job that in itself is kind of meaningless. It actually feels good to feel like I'm just skiing and having fun, but I'm also like contributing to something that is actually like consequential for us humans and the planet and all the other animals we share it with.
Yeah, that's a big step, I would say, because as you mentioned, like we all know, like what are the consequences, and we all have been seeing, especially like mountain people, skiers, like we see like how the snow is disappearing, the glaciers. But from this knowledge to action, what you did, it's very inspiring. Like I would say it's much easier to think about it, to know about the problems than to take action. And I think one of the reasons is probably because we live in a system that it's made like that, and we feel comfortable. And as you mentioned, like jump to the unknown, because what is known is like, okay, we have this kind of lifestyle, we have this kind of facilities, commodities, like our job is like that. So when I look back to my career at the beginning, it was a bit the same. It was like, okay, I'm traveling, I'm racing around the world. And it was like, I knew that my carbon footprint was big, and it was like, yeah, but that's the life as an athlete. Like, that's something that it's normal. And it shouldn't be. Like, we don't question, like, our lifestyle because it's common, it's with what we have been doing and they have been doing before us. But it's a great step that you did to question your lifestyle and change it, actually. And one of the probably, I think many athletes, they don't, it's hard for them to talk about it because it's a lot of criticism often. I don't know if it happens to you that when you post about like environmental issues or climate change, it's a lot of negative comments saying that yes, but you are traveling around, you are like, your industry is like based on overconsumption and all that. So how do you feel about that? And it's been something that has been like stopping you to post or comment or talk about climate change, or it's something that you say, okay, it's just like a few people and I'm impacting more for the good?
No, and I think this is like a real issue. My friend Celeste, she was in the last film, she did actually a paper on this, like why do athletes don't speak out? She interviewed a bunch of them. So I think it is an important thing to talk about. For me, I mean, it is interesting because we all have emissions, right? Living in this world, in our society, which is in so many ways an amazing society, and I love civilization and everything that we're doing for each other, except for ruining the earth with all these carbon emissions. But yes, we all have emissions, and like Greta Thunberg has 2 dogs. You don't need 2 dogs. They have emissions too. But obviously, like we all have emissions, so you can't get around that. And so to me, it's like, yeah, I get a ton of criticism all the time, like from all these people. But like I am doing something. I'm not living in the forest, walking barefoot and just growing my own potatoes and like living off the land. But I don't think we have to. Like I strongly believe in a future of sufficient energy, abundant energy, renewable energy or nuclear energy or whatever, but non-fossil energy sources. And I think we can get to a society where we have enough resources for everyone, enough energy for everyone, and where that's shared fairly among the population to a greater degree than it is today, and that we can do that within the limits of the planet that we live on. But I don't think that'll happen by itself. And so to me, I think we need to work towards that and take the necessary steps to get there. And I don't know, when like I feel like the people I talk to who give me criticism too, I feel like they just don't have hope. They don't believe in a better future. They think this is as good as it's ever going to get. And if we change everything, it might get worse, which is like fair. But I think, of all people, and like I know in the mountains, like you have to take some leaps of faith. You have to believe that this line, even if nobody's been down there, and even if it's like a climbing route, and even if all these factors, but you have to trust that we're humans and we have this amazing skill at adapting and solving problems and going into the unknown and going into like very risky situations, but coming out of those situations better with more value and like having better lives. And I think it's actually really interesting, this like parallel to like mountain adventure and these like civilizational changes that we're going into, that you just kind of have to just going into the unknown. But yeah, I don't know, talking about the criticism, honestly, I think it's kind of fun. I love debates. I love it when these people are in the comments and we're talking back and forth, and I'm like, and I try to treat them with respect. They're coming from somewhere. They might be believing the most crazy conspiracy theory. But then I try to talk about this theory. Like, why do you believe this? Why don't you believe this? I try to explain science, how science works. No, there's not like a conspiracy of like, I don't know even where they don't know where people get the idea of like a climate conspiracy. Like, who's going to earn money doing that? Is it like the windmill lobby? You know? But I find it hugely rewarding, like engaging with these people and like engaging with people that don't have the same viewpoints as you have, and talking to them. And honestly, I find the worst critique, the critique that actually like of hurts me, is the critique from, because what you'll get is like, you know, you'll make a film or you'll do a talk or whatever, and you'll have 200,000 people who don't say anything, who just watch it and think, oh, that's cool. And then you'll have some people who really hate it on like the climate denier side, or like grumpy mountain people who are like, you're doing it wrong. And then you'll have some people, and these are the people like I'm most concerned about. These are like the kind of that hurts the most. It's like, you're not green enough. You're not doing enough. You're not lowering your emissions enough. So it's kind of like you will get attacked from every side, no matter what you do, as long as you speak up. But I don't know. I try to like latch on to 98% of the feedback I get, at least, is positive. I don't know how that is for you, but I find that people care and engage in these things.
Yeah, I find the same, that even if normally the people that speak out is the ones that they want to criticize, but like the ones that you can like give a tool, like give some conviction, give some like resources, they might not like be commenting like crazy, but they might get some positive things out of it, and it's not that you will stop because some people is criticizing. And I think that in the last years it's been like a change on that. I would say that some years ago it was like more like, yeah, climate change is something that I hear sometimes in the news, but it was not like on the daily like conversations. And at least on the mountain and ski, I feel that more people is taking that conversation like on a daily basis, or more like frequently. And even I think because the phenomena that we see in the mountains are getting like so quick, like it's changing so fast, and it's just like I don't know about yourself, but I feel that I cannot read the mountains as I could like 5-10 years ago, because it's changing so fast. Like seasons are so different, and everything is changing like very quickly. And I think also with all the phenomena with like the fires in Europe, or like the floating in Northern Europe and like Germany, and that it's been like we have been seeing that, okay, yeah, it's here, it's now, it's happening, it starts to happen now. And then people like probably are more more aware that we need to do something, and we can't wait much. And before we started recording this conversation, you were saying that you are in the Alps right now, and like this season it's crazy. Like we see that it's not any snow in South Europe. Like it's only like in the higher mountains, or the ski slopes are like just like with artificial snow. Here in Norway is a bit better, but like it's a very strange winter too, with very hot, very cold temperatures, and then changing all the time, rain to snow, rain to snow. And I wonder, where are we heading as a sport, as an industry, like the ski industry? Because I love skiing. It's my passion. Like I wait in the summer for the winter to the snow, this feeling of gliding, like the feeling of like cold, of ice, of snow. But I wonder if like the next generation, they will enjoy that, or how do you picture like yourself, like how will be like winters? I don't know what. I don't know myself. I don't know how do you picture yourself like in 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah, and I know that like the Norwegian Ski Federation, they posted some stats. They're losing members, partly for like different reasons, but part of it is like that the winters are shorter. And I know in Tromsø, where I live, the projections are that there will be we'll lose 2 out of 3 ski days in the winter by 2100. So in like 80 years. With the current trend. That's what I'm trying to like, hey guys, let's do something about it. But yeah, it's crazy. Like now here in the Alps, I came down early December, and the storms that have been coming in have been so hot, and they've been like, we had 15 degrees above average temperature for the last storm, which is insane. Like 15 degrees, that's like Celsius. I don't know if you're a Fahrenheit person listening to this, then it's a lot. And then I post about this. Okay, it's like really warm now. The next storm is going to be warm, and there's no snow below 2,000 meters. Like the slopes are grass, and it was like this last year too. And I think the year before was like a little bit better, but then the year before there it was like it is getting worse. And then people will say like, oh, but this is just like one weather event. You can't attribute this to climate change. But I'm like, this is climate change. More warm days. Like this is the essence of it. Like every heat wave with the record temperature, that is only because of climate change. Like maybe it would, but because like, yeah, climate change in its essence, how we're experiencing it, is more days of hot weather. And this is what we're living through now. And I think that's a huge change. And I actually see that in the people that I talk to. Like, because like the first climate project I did was more about like me trying to adapt to this more abstract phenomenon. But in that first film I did, you weren't actually like observing climate change. But now I went to Svalbard for a project, crazy heat wave, the hottest temperatures ever recorded. And, since we started recording temperatures, we're on that trip. And now when I'm in the Alps now, it's just visible in another way. And I think I also get a different reaction from the audience, because it is different to talk about this like scientific phenomenon that you can't see with your naked eye to now this experience that we're living through. So I think that's a big change, like this past few years. And like, I don't know, you see those indoor ski slopes? I hope that's not the future of skiing. Or the only skiing in Chamonix will be up on the Guillemedi, at 3,900. But I don't know, I'm hopeful that we can change these things. And I think societal change happens faster than you might think once you get the ball rolling. You take Sweden, for example, as a country. They were one of the most unequal countries in the world in the early 1900s. They had a voting system based on how much money you had. So in some towns, there was one person with over half the vote. He could choose everything. And within 20, 30 years, because of mobilization, activism, people getting involved, trying to change this, trying to create a better and a more fair society, they had one of the most equal societies on the planet. And it's a pretty short time span. It's like a few decades. You can do a lot, Because imagine to the people, and I get this question too, people are like, but how are you going to change all the cars from like gas to electric? You can't do that today. You're going to have all the mines and everything. But I'm like, it's not going to happen overnight. It's a process, but we have to start walking down the road. And I think, imagine if you were living in the 50s and then seeing all the progress that happened till today, it would be unimaginable. But it does happen because, baby steps lead a long way. And I just think it's so important. And like what I'm trying to do, like obviously part of it is like reducing my emissions. But honestly, like the main reason I'm doing that is because of my activism. I've read studies on how activism is received by an audience. And you're actually walking the walk, if you're actually taking some steps, seeing that you're practically trying to deal with a problem, it's so much more trustworthy and people engage with it so much more. I think it was Forbes that was writing about it. These like UN people flying all over the world, Al Gore, what's his name, the actor, DiCaprio. It's so easy to criticize it because they're living this life where they're just on the mission tops of the world. Whereas if you actually have a story where you're also trying to deal with a problem, I think you come a way longer way. But I believe for myself, like I don't criticize my friends who go flying to Japan or whatever if they don't have a public platform. Because I think the most important thing for me is to convince them to vote for the parties that put, emission standards in all the industries. Vote for the parties that want to transition from fossil to renewables, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's a big divide there, I feel like, between private people with a public platform, et cetera. And just like, I'm not entirely sure, but I think to mobilize this wide societal change that we need, it needs to be popular and we need to want to do it. And you can't like go pissing everyone off all the time. but try to be friendly about it.
Yeah, I think here is the hardest thing on like we see that this change is possible, like it has been happening in society in many things for good, and we know that it will be good, like everything, like if we reduce the temperature increase, if we reduce like the biodiversity loss, everything that is happening to the environment. But I think it's hard for people to abandon, like as we mentioned before, like to abandon what we know and to go like what's the next. Like I think that's what we are not able to picturize, what will be alive. And I think it's once we picturize that what will be life when we put in practice all these solutions that we know, and all this change, of course that don't come smooth. Probably it will challenge a lot of the parts of the society, like probably some professions, like and that comes to I don't know, like from some industries that of course there's a lot of people living on them, or like the ski industry, like the all the villages with the ski areas that they are at low altitude, they will need to find another economic model, they will need to find something else. And that comes for most of the industries. But once that happens and the changes, that they will be challenging to visualize what will be the future, and that future will be much better. I think that can be the moment that where it really changes and people really say, okay, we want to make this change happen and start mobilizing more. I think this year it's been like, you were mentioning Greta, she's been like really advocating for the last years, and also like with this all the scientist extinction movement and all these movements that it's going out now, it seems that it's something is starting to switch or to change. But as you mentioned, like the role of a sport, it's big. Like we have big platforms, and it was very good where you say about like public persons or private persons, that it comes with a responsibility probably to have a lot of followers, a lot of people following you, because it's important to give our opinions, but also we have the responsibility for that. And sports, it's a huge platform. It's a lot of people following sports, and ski, outdoor sports are not that big, but they are big. It's many people doing that, and probably we need to involve more sports into that, and challenge the model that we are living, challenge what we are doing, as you mentioned, because we need to be somehow coherent about what we are doing. We cannot be just like saying, yeah, climate change is happening, but we keep doing the same. We need to change our lifestyle, our way to do to advocate with a basis. And I think that's challenging, because we need to change the industry, and that's something that it's, as you mentioned, it don't happen overnight.
But I think a really good example actually is like, I mean, you have your sponsors, right? You have sponsors for your skis, for your outerwear, etc. Headlamps. I'm happy to be a teammate with you. And the model for how we make a living is behavioral change. We're trying to drive behavioral change in consumers. Obviously, that's not the core of what we do. We have our passion for the mountain and our athletes. We're athletes who do sports, and that's what we love, and that's what we do. But how we make a living and contribute financially to our families and or not families like me is by behavioral change in consumers, by being a role model. So like, I'll wear a jacket, and because I wear this jacket, the business model, or the hope for the business model, is that someone else will also watch me wearing that jacket and then buy that jacket. And I think this goes for everything. So it's like, if I'm jet setting over the world and doing heli skiing, etc., that's what the consumer will want to do, even if I'm advocating something else. I do think, in a way, like, actions speak louder than words. And like you say, because we have these platforms, I think it's really important to lead and to push for a future that I at least believe in. Like I don't want to live in a world where we're destroying the one thing we depend on to survive, to have a civilization. Like I don't believe in that. I think, and I actually think honestly, like right now, I think the science is in favor of us being able to have good societies and while tackling climate change. I don't know if you listen to the Volts podcast, or there's this new study out of Oxford where they're talking about the energy transition, and they're doing the maths on it. And what they're observing now, after some countries have been investing in renewable energy, is that the cost of these energies are just dropping rapidly the more you invest in it, which is different from fossil fuels, which remain constant over time. And what they're seeing, or what their theory at least, they're not entirely sure why it's happening, is because the more you extract fossil fuels, even if you get better at it, there will be less of it. But with the renewables, the better you get at it, you can just take more because there's always sunlight hitting, you know? You don't have to dig deeper into the earth to find it. And so what these economists and complex systems scientists at Oxford are finding, based on these models with these numbers, which are observed numbers, this is happening, this has happened for many years. This is not just some wild economic theory. But based on what has been happening for many years, they see that the faster we transition away from fossil energy, the better it is for the economy of society as a whole. Like we'll have cheaper energy, more energy. So it's actually like, it makes sense financially. And at the same time, like I'm well aware that with too much growth, that won't make a difference, because you'll have growth in the renewables and you'll also have growth in the fossil. So I'm for sure we shouldn't like be too growth focused and always think about materialistic things. But I think it's important to also have that angle of like, I think you can deal with global warming, and I think you can deal with biodiversity loss and recognize that we need to take care of the planet and still maintain a good, materially good quality of life. And I mean, part of my ideology that I'm trying to push there is that if we also level the distribution of wealth a little bit, that'll be way easier, because you're not sending like billions to, Monaco. I did an event in Monaco and I met the billionaires, and it's so absurd. Like, because, we have this system now that, which contributes to global warming and biodiversity loss, and now also just rampant inequality, with wages in Europe and all over the Western world stagnating for years. And then I got to visit the winners in the system, the people who get to reap the benefits. And, and in a way we justify it, right? Yeah, if you work hard, you can become a billionaire. And then I get to see the life of the billionaires. And like, I stayed in like the fanciest suite in the Monaco Yacht Club. And I was like, it's not that sweet, A bed is just a bed in the end. And the shower is just a shower. And, it's really interesting to see. So I don't know. I feel like my main message that I want to convey in my activism is that I believe in a better alternative. And I think if we all work together and contribute everything that we can, or not even everything that we can, but just a little bit, I think Yuval Harari said, if we invest 2% of the global GDP into dealing with global warming, that's it. That's all we need. It's 2%. So it's not a huge deal, but I think we can get there.
I think so. I think it's a good message that you are living here for everyone. And just to finish, I'm like, what would you say to a young skier that is starting now, and he or she is starting to be professional, looking to be professional? What would be your advice to her or to him to tackle a career as a skier, at the same time as being like environmentally like more sustainable?
I would say style matters. And then by style, I mean the whole way you approach your activity, not just how you hold your grab or how you make your turn or how fast you run, but how you approach the mountain and how you approach everything. I think to me in the early days of my career, I was so single-mindedly focused on being able to be a pro skier in the first place. I felt like there was no room for these other concerns, like the social and environmental. But I think if you combine it all together, and if you sort of have a practice that is aligned with your values, I think that can go a long way. And I think you'll perform better and you'll have a better peace of mind while you do it. I think.
That's
What's your advice?
Yeah, no, I think so. Like, I think it's for me it was the same. I was focusing more on the performance side, and then it's like, yeah, the rest it was there, but I didn't really care about it. But I would say the same. Like, and especially today, like at the end of the journey, it's not about it's about the journey. It's about what you live there, and it's about like what you will remember is like the good days, like in the mountains, or like training, or like climbing, or whatever. And that's the most important. It's get the most of it and think about the style. It's as you mentioned, like it's important how you do it. It's more important the how than the what, and that's that comes for everything. And we need to be more on that, on trying to do things because we believe in them, and to do things on a way that we feel like fully content about them. So I think it's pretty aligned on that. So thanks for the conversation, and for everyone. Like, if you want to just go out in the net and look for Nikolai's films, they are amazing. You will get a lot of inspiration for skiing, for activism, and hope to meet you somewhere in the mountains, here in Norway or elsewhere.
Yeah, likewise. I'm looking forward to see you run laps around me as I struggle to get up the mountain. Thanks for having me, Killian.
A pleasure.
And hope the snow keeps falling on the West Coast.
Yeah. Like, hope the snow starts to be a bit more present. Let's think that will change, but we need to put our part on that.
Definitely. Let's do that.